Welcome, Jazz Mentalists, to this Saturday Masterclass. It's Paul Tobey here from jazzmental.com. Thanks for joining me for another one of these sessions. Got a few of you in the chat area already sharing your name and where you're from. Quick shout out to Keith and Shell and Ben and Rich and Global Jazz Works from Austria. Okay. You can share your name. It wouldn't hurt to do that. Hey, John, how are you doing? And for everybody else that's on the live stream, and I can see that there's a number of you that have not joined the chat yet, so when you do, just give your name and where you're from. I'd really appreciate it. Today, we are talking about 4 major 7 chords. If you're not familiar with the beauty of 4 major 7 chords, then we are going to do a lot of discussion about why they're important and how they fit into the context of many jazz standards, including the one we're working on today, which is almost like being in love. A jazz standard that I'm not sure how popular it is, but made popular by Nat King Cole, I think is the first name that comes to mind. But pretty much lots of people have done this tune. I'm going to share a sheet music download with you, which is a transcription of a Red Garland solo. So let me throw that into the chat area now. And as always, I'm going to pin it to the top just so you have access to it throughout the session. For those of you that are new, sometimes the website gets a little slow when a lot of people go there and try to download it once. So just give it a bit of time. The link will be there until the end of the session. And Jerry from Spain and Karen, good to see you from Seattle, Alan, John, and again, everyone else that's here. Thanks for coming. I typically start these sessions by playing a little bit on the piano, and I give you some things to listen for. In this particular case, what I want you to listen for is the first chord of the tune, which I'm going to throw the sheet music. It's just a lead sheet. This isn't the download that I'm sharing. It's just a lead sheet from the tune. We're going to play it in the key of B flat, but notice the very first chord. It is an E flat major 7, which is 4 major 7 of the key of B flat. So I think it's appropriate to play this tune because that is going to be the discussion for today's masterclass. Why is that chord important? How does it make sense in the context of jazz standards? And what are some of the things that we can do with it? Some voicings, some soloing strategies. And I think it's sometimes good to focus on one thing at a time versus many things. So I think if you're looking for a little bit of an edge in your improvisations, then this is probably going to be a good session for you. Hey, Scott from Los Angeles. Good to see you. All right, while you go grab the sheet music, I'm going to leave the lead sheet up on the screen, but while you do your thing, I'm going to play a little bit over top of this tune. And again, just listen for that 4 major 7th chord, which, and I'll give you a little hint about this, it can actually be swapped out with 2 minor 7, which is one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit. So it gives it a lot of versatility in that regard. So listen for things like that, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes after I play this tune. Oh, hey, Nancy. We certainly missed you last night. This is for those of you that have read the message from Nancy, just say hi because she's in the hospital right now. So good to see you, honey. Glad you could make it. And to Larry and Emoti and Keith and Bryce and Allison and everybody else who's joined the chat, thank you so much. Jerry says, like the chordal interjections. Yeah, I think it's a good tune for things like that. It's a pretty simple tune in terms of its chord changes. It doesn't stray too far from the original key. And thank you for everyone who's saying hello to Nancy. I appreciate that. I certainly want to say hello. I'm going to be heading to the hospital right after today's session to spend the day with her. So, yeah. All right, let's take a look at the sheet music that's on your screen, which is the lead sheet. Now, the sheet music that I gave you to download, which is a solo from Red Garland, we're going to take a little look at that in a moment. But what I wanted to briefly do is just talk about 4 major 7 and the things that you can do with it. So one of the things that's interesting about this chord, if you take a look at the tertian harmony and the way chords are built, Alan, I'll get to that in 1 second. Thank you for the question, and I will share that with you because I think I know what you're talking about. But just I wanted to do one quick thing in terms of harmony, and just not to confuse anyone, let's just take the sheet music off the screen right now. We're just going to focus on fingers for right now. If you go up in tertian harmony, all chords are built in thirds. So for example, in a C major scale, if you build chords in thirds, using that scale, you get 1, 3, 5, and 7. So this is a C major 7th chord. And if you go up the scale, just like that, D minor 7, E minor 7, and then you get to 4 major 7, which is F major 7. And the really interesting thing about this, it's unlike any other chord that we have for one specific reason, and I'll talk about that now. So I want to compare it to, for example, the other major 7th chord in that scale. So there's only 2 of them. There's 1 major 7 and there's 4 major 7. Everything else is either minor, dominant, or minor 7. So this is minor 7 and this is a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So there's only 2 major 7 chords in that scale. The difference between the two is striking in the fact that if you go to a C major 7th chord and you continue with what we call extensions, you get 7, then 9 here, then 11, and then 13. But the interesting thing about this is listen to this chord. It just sounds flat out wrong. And the reason for that is because it contains what's called a flat 9. So if you take a look at the third of the chord, which is the most important chord tone of any chord, that's the note that determines whether it's a major 7th or a minor 7th chord and even a diminished chord. But in the context of extensions, if you put 3, 5, 7, and 9, and then 11, you can't use the 11th because it creates this flat 9 with the most important note of the chord. So typically what we do, if we want to use an 11th, is we make it a sharp 11. So that becomes, which is a lot nicer than this. This is just wrong. This actually works. But if you go to the F minor 7th chord and you do the same thing in the key of C, you get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. It's the only chord that you can use because this note, which is the 11th, is not like the 11th of C major 7. It's actually, it does not create a flat 9 with anything in the chord, and so it's available because it's the sharp 11. So unlike any other chord in the arsenal, 9, 11, and 13 are available to use. Not so with any other chord. Minor 7th chords only use 9 and 11. They don't use the 13th for the very same reason. And dominant 7th chords, same thing. If you do a G7 chord and then you go up the scale, you got another flat 9 with the third of the chord. So you have to make it a sharp 11. So in that regard, every single note of the scale for F7, F major 7, is available. And that's the only chord. And that's what makes it special, because there's a lot of things now that it frees you up to be able to do. First of all, no notes are unavailable in the key of the moment, which means you can play any note and it's going to sound great. So that's the first thing I wanted to say about 4 major 7. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. How many of you realized this before? Because, again, it's not something that we think a lot about, because if you're playing in the key of C, every note of a 4 major 7 chord is available. It's not something we, again, spend a lot of time thinking about, but it's a revelation in that regard. And it makes it special. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. So that's the first thing. Just in the context of tertian harmony, every extension in the key of the moment is available. So we're in the key of B flat today, and the very first chord is an E flat major 7. And then it goes to F7, which is 5/7. So the interesting thing about this chord is that in the key of B flat, every single note is available and nothing sounds wrong. So you can just play a B flat major 7 scale and everything's going to sound great. And it's interesting because in tunes like Dolphin Dance by Herbie Hancock, it uses a lot of these major 7th chords with sharp 11s. And it makes it float. It doesn't even need to be resolved. It's only until you get to the next chord, which needs to be resolved because it's a dominant 7th chord. All dominant 7th chords need to go somewhere. So again, it makes it really fun as an improviser to know that the very first chord of this tune, which is 4 major 7, and not many tunes start on 4 major 7, by the way. It makes it fun to realize that any note will do. So let's just solo over E flat major 7 for a second. Interesting, right? Nothing sounds wrong. We're just kind of floating in the key of B flat over a 4 major 7 chord, which is E flat major 7. E flat major 7, 9, sharp 11, and 13. The other thing about this tune is that, and I briefly mentioned this a few minutes ago, is that it's completely interchangeable with 2 minor 7. And the reason for that is, if you take a look at 4 major 7, and then you go to the 9th and the 11th, interestingly enough, if you swap out the 11th and just go to the 9th, this becomes the 11th of C minor 7. So the only difference between these two chords, E major 7 with the 9th and C minor 7th with the 9th and 11th, is one note, which is the bass note. So they're completely interchangeable. So that then opens up a world of possibility. You can think in E flat major 7 first. We'll switch to C minor 7 and it gives it some new flavor. For example, on all minor 7th chords, you can use a blues scale. This is a C minor, this is a C blues scale. Which is not something we think about in the context of E major 7. It's a little bit different. To C minor 7 blues scale. So if we were to swap out the very first chord of the tune with a 2 minor 7th chord versus 4 major 7, it'll give us some interesting flavor. So I'm going to play 2 A sections. The first A section is going to have 4 major 7, and the second A section we're going to start on 2 minor 7 because they're interchangeable. So let's do this. So this time I'm going to solo instead of playing the melody. So first A section, 4 major 7. Second A section, 2 minor 7. Let's do that a little bit better. The difference between them is barely perceptible to the ear. However, it gives you more versatility when thinking about 4 major 7th chords. All 4 major 7th chords in a soloing context, even if you don't tell the bass player, can be swapped out for 2 minor 7th chords. So that kind of, those two things right there, every extension available in the key of the moment, and the fact that you can swap it out for 2 minor 7, is a bit of a revelation when you think about the versatility of chords. So that's cool. I hope that sticks. Now, just briefly, because I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask questions and get some answers. I don't want to spend the entire time talking about this. I want to answer a few questions. So let me go all the way back to Alan's question, which he says, can you take a brief moment, and it may not be brief, to describe what chord fills you use on the B-flat 6 when you first started your wonderful performance. I love wonderful in brackets, thank you. So if he's talking about B-flat 6 in the actual tune itself, let me throw the sheet music back on the screen. So for me, I think he's talking about the chord that leads right into the first, well, like the pickup, right? So what I did there, and I hope this answers your question because I'm not sure if I've got the right place, because there's no B-flat 6 chord anywhere in here except the last chord of the tune. So what I'm doing is when I'm picking up into the E-flat major 7, I'm doing a 2-5 of E-flat. So I'm playing an F minor 7th chord for the first note, and then I'm playing a B-flat 7 with a 9th to get to the next chord, and then 4 major 7. And there's a million ways that you can play that, where you can use this voicing, which is a B-flat 7 with a sharp 5. So instead of this one, use this one, right? Gives it a little bit more bite to E-flat major 7. So I hope that answers your question. So then when I got to the bottom of the tune, going back to the top, so what I did was, again, F minor 7 to B-flat 7 with a sharp 5 to 4 major 7, E-flat major 7. Alan, does that answer your question? Okay, no, it doesn't. So I was referring to the B flat 6 in measure 7. You did something lovely rather than just staying on the B flat 6 for an entire measure. Oh, okay. So that changes things. So he's talking about this measure here. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. Yeah. Okay, I'm just kind of highlighting it to where it is rather than take a screenshot and use a pen. So, and I think it's sometimes good, if I can find the right words, it's sometimes good to answer questions the way you think they were asked because it brings up another piece of information like this, which is passing chords getting to 4 major 7. In this context, if we're focused on that, we're getting to 1, we got to get back to E flat major 7. So we could have done this. And then we can do the 2-5-1 of E flat. Or we could do what I did, which is this. Ends on 1, go to 4, like this, which is 4 major 7 with a sharp 11. So think of F over E flat, and then a 2-5-1 of C minor, which is half diminished 7th, D half diminished 7th to G7, in this case flat 9 with a 13, to 4 major 7. Because remember, even though it's a G7 flat 9, it could go to C minor, but because it's interchangeable with 4 major 7, it sounds right. Like this. Cool, right? 1, 4, 7, 4 major 7, actually 4 dominant 7s with a sharp 11 makes it nicer than major 7. And then a 2-5-1 of C minor, but go to E flat instead. Peter, does that answer your question? Sorry, Alan, does that answer your question? I think it should. Lots of shout outs to Nancy. Appreciate that. And prayers. Always nice. Hey, Manuel from Germany. Good to see you. Too cool. 4 years of music school, and I never turned this into a concept. Which music school? Just curious, Rich. Do you have a specific musical school that you want to share with us? Or music school? And then an answer for Alan's question. Alan, I'd play B flat 6 alternating with a diminished chord, Barry Harris, but let's see what Paul suggests. Yeah, so that was my suggestion. You could do that. Basically, if you're going to use the 6 diminished scale from Barry Harris, so this is B flat 6, every other note of the scale becomes a dominant 7th chord with a flat 9. So B flat 6 to C diminished 7th, to B flat 6 to E flat diminished 7th, to B flat 6 to, hang on, where's my brain? To F sharp diminished 7th, right? B flat 6, F sharp diminished 7th, B flat 6, A diminished 7th, B flat 6. So this. So he's suggesting, or who A.L. Webb is suggesting, is that somehow we get from B flat 6th to E flat major 7 using the 6 diminished scale. So let's try that. Maybe we can figure something out. So. Everything works. I like the suggestion. Good for you. Alan says, very nice application of some jazz theory. I'm glad you got the answer to your question. University of Hawaii never talked about this concept. I'm not sure it's a concept in and of itself. I just like finding little ways of creating versatility in your playing by really understanding individual chords. And in this case, the individual chord that we're trying to analyze and make versatile is the 4 major 7th chord. So, A.L. Webb. Yes, exactly, Paul. I appreciate that. Well, I mean, Rich, you were surfing the day they taught that. I'm glad you're surfing. I tried it once, by the way, when I was in Hawaii. And I can tell you, if you're not a regular surfer, it's very tiring. And while I was able to do a surfing on a really big board, not the little tiny ones that pros use, I can tell you I was spent after that day in Honolulu, because it's hard work. Holy smokes, I didn't realize how much hard work it was. All right. So there's a lot of information in a short period of time to do with 4 major 7. What I want to do now is I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about specific soloing ideas. So many of you know that there's something called chromatic passing notes and enclosures when creating soloing ideas. So the interesting thing about chromatic passing notes and enclosures for a 4 major 7th chord, and let's stick to E flat major 7 because that's the key that we're in at the current moment. We're in the key of B flat, and we're playing 4 major 7 with a 9, 11, and 13. So the first chromatic passing note that I would stick in there, because if you just play, for example, a B flat 7 scale, or a B flat major 7 scale over E flat, starting on E flat, it's only 7 notes. 8 notes creates a more bebop sound because it fills in the space of 8 notes to a bar. So in the context of a B flat bebop scale, you can do 2 things. You can do a flat 5, or flat 6, or sharp 5, which is the F sharp, or you can do which is a flat 4, which makes it easier when you're talking about the passing notes for C minor 7. It's still that E natural. So they're all the same. They just use the same passing note E. Or you can use the sharp 5. In the context of major 7th chords, how do we add a passing note in there? And I think the best passing note to use is B natural, or what we call the sharp 5 or the flat 6. Now, the interesting thing about that note is if you created an enclosure with one of the chord tones, which is B flat, you get this sound. Right? This note here. Now, that's not the only choice for adding a passing note to make 8 notes. The other choice that I would add comes, and this is the revelation that maybe some people are looking for shortcuts. What was the chord that we swapped out easily 4 major 7th with? Yes, C minor 7. And over that chord, we introduced the blues scale, which is this. the most important blue note in there is the flat 5, which now we're going to add to our scale. Now, by itself, it doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound as nice as this. It bites a little bit more because it's a flat 3 in E flat. It's a flat 5 for C minor. But in E flat, it changes the major third to a minor third. So you have to play it in the right context, and the right context is to use a C minor blues scale over E flat. Now, I wouldn't suggest using a 4 major 7 root position chord like this, because you're going to get this flat, this major 7th interval, which is just flat out wrong. But what you can do is, instead of playing this voicing, you can voice it in fourths, going up the scale. And that makes a much more hollow sound. You can play any of these, by the way. I'm just sticking to the key of the moment, right? But because the fourths are a really hollow sound, this note becomes much more available. And then you can use it in the context of a bebop scale like this. Right? Does that make sense? You can let me know in the comments if it doesn't make sense, and if you need a little clarity on it, because that was a lot of harmony shoved into like a minute of learning. But the general concept is, from a soloing perspective, there are 2 scales that are really important in jazz. This bebop scale, which is 1, 2, 3, natural or sharp 5, right? And you can use this note as the passing note, which is the flat 13 or the sharp 5. Or you can get really funky and play the flat 3. But if you play the flat 3, remind yourself that this voicing in the left hand with the natural third is not going to work very well. It's just going to grate like this. It just sounds wrong. Alan says, yikes, playing the E flat major 7th in fourths enables the use of C minor blues scale. That's the second epiphany today. Can you believe it? Wow, this is so much fun. Okay. So then, if we played the tune, the first A section, we're going to play E flat major 7 with the standard bebop scale, Lydian. And then on the second A section, we're going to switch to C minor. Actually, no, let's stay with 4 major 7, but let's change the voicing in the left hand and use the flat 3. So here we go. One more time. Let's try to play more scales. Interestingly enough, if we played this voicing as our E flat major 7th chord, right? Because we're just borrowing from the scale, right? It's just, those are the notes from the scale, except it's voiced in fourths. This voicing is also an F7 chord because it contains the third and the flat 7. So it's the same chord. So we can play the same blues scale over the first 2 chords of the tune, which is E flat major 7 to F7. That was really poorly played. Let me try that again. Really fun. I did want to share something with you before we move on, because a lot of you might be thinking, maybe the concept is too advanced, or I don't know what's going on in your head. But one thing that always helped me, and I just wanted to share something. I had to dig out this book. It's a book I wrote called Suggestology. I actually wrote a couple of books when I was in business. And there's an exercise in here that talks about clearing out limiting beliefs. Now, if you don't know what a limiting belief is, it's a belief that you have that is most likely untrue, but because you believe it, then you will find plenty of evidence in your reality to support that belief. This happens in everything. A belief in politics, a belief in relationships, a belief in money, a belief in nature, whatever. And a lot of times we adopt these belief systems and they don't support us in a positive way. And I call them limiting beliefs. A limiting belief is a belief that you have that is most likely untrue, that's holding you back from getting what you want. For example, and I'll give you an exercise in a second here, but one belief is, and many people have this, they say, I never win anything. Now, that may or may not be true, but the fact that you say it and you believe it means that you're closing yourself off from the concept of winning. For example, I never win anything means I can buy a 50-50 ticket and never win. I can play board games and never win. And I do that with Monopoly all the time. I never win at Monopoly, right? So that's a limiting belief. But in the context of like jazz piano, I never win at jazz piano. Winning meaning I'm not progressing fast enough. So what you have to do is you have to overwrite that belief system, and you have to do something called empowering beliefs. So there's limiting beliefs and there's empowering beliefs. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't in my book, but it's basically right there. So the concept of I never win anything, you need to swap that out for a new belief system that says people win prizes every day. I too am in the process of allowing prizes and other good things happen to me. It's not saying I win all the time, because you know that's not true. You can't, an empowering belief isn't a belief in something that isn't true. It's a belief that good things can come to you, that you can win things. Let's try another one. I always struggle to pay the bills. This was me for many years, by the way. The empowering belief that you put in motion is I have the ability to pay bills effortlessly, and I'm in the process of creating a steady cash flow. Interesting, right? Here's another one. I am horrible with money. Empowering belief. I am in the process of adopting good money behaviors and habits. Here's one for everyone, I think. I struggle to maintain my health. I am committed to living a long and healthy life. Now let's create one for piano. I struggle to play bebop. I am in the process of adopting bebop language so that I can perform effortlessly. It's like a shift in perception, a shift in belief system, and a shift in mindset. So that's the difference between limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are, I don't have enough dexterity to play fast. I am in the process of practicing so that I can become more dexterous with my fingers. Not saying that I am dexterous, like I have dexterity, because that may or may not be true. I am in the process of adopting good dexterity behaviors, good habits. I'm in the process of attracting this into my life. So when it comes to things like this tune, and you might think to yourself, wow, it takes me a long time to learn a new song. And so let's put the sheet music back on the screen. And the first time you look at something new, in this case a lead sheet, I struggle to perform lead sheets. I am in the process of learning from lead sheets faster. I am in the process of creating good lead sheet behaviors. I'm in the process of learning good chords and nice soloing habits over lead sheets, adopting good chord voicings. I am in the process of doing these things. It's a shift in mindset. So for me, I'm in the process of learning, almost like being in love, from the lead sheet as fast as possible. I'm in the process of doing this. And then you might say, well, I struggle to find different ways of playing things. I am in the process of learning new ways to get to destination chords. I don't know, maybe it's not the day for talking about limiting beliefs because the conversation just stopped dead. You seem to like more the technical stuff than the soft skills, but I think both are necessary in order to get where you want to get. So at least can I have a comment about limiting beliefs, and did you learn anything from it? And if not, you can let me know that too. I have to pick up my light pen that I dropped. Give me 1 second. Got it. Problem with the little light pen is if you drop it, it rolls. So it can get pretty far away. All right. Well, that was fun. Let me play a little bit more. And out of this arrangement, which will come out of the top of our heads, let me know what you think. And we'll talk about some of these ideas. Interesting concept or comment from XXX. You can't do what you believe you can't do. That's correct. And that's what I was really trying to explain. A limiting belief says you can't do something, and that belief, you'll find plenty of evidence in your reality to prove that it's true. So you need to clear out your limiting beliefs and shift them. Shift your focus. Say new mantras and new, more empowering things to yourself, especially in your subconscious mind, to begin to attract the things that you believe you can't do. It's the only way to do it. Because if you continue to believe something won't happen, it will not happen. Because you will attract the very thing you put your focus on. What you focus on expands. Thank you for the comment. Hey, Modi, see you next week. Appreciate the comment and the shout out for Nancy. Allison likes the right-hand chords. You're welcome. Well, we're in the mood for a melody and you've got us feeling all right. What is that tune? I know you're making reference to a tune. I'm having a senior's moment. Alan says, in that last improvisation, you have incorporated all the major points of this lesson. Much to study and learn from here, and I think I just moved some limiting beliefs away. All right, good comment. One thing I did want to do before we adjourn for this week is take a brief look at the transcription that I sent you to download. Oh, and I also just wanted to mention, and I will throw a link up on the screen, is that last week we had a lot of interest in my improvisation over My Funny Valentine. And we took a poll and we said, do you want the transcription for this version or the second version, the first version or the second version that I played in last week's live stream? I got the first version transcribed at your request. And I'm going to put that link in the chat area now. And I'll pin that one to the top instead of the other one because I think everybody's gone and downloaded it already. So there it is at the top of the chat. There's a coupon code there. I also sent you an email if you managed to go and download today's sheet music, which I'm going to put on the screen momentarily. But I'm only responding to what you asked for, and there is an investment in it because I do have to pay the transcriber. But there you go. I looked at the transcription itself and I listened to the solo several times, and I think you're going to be very, very happy with this transcription because there's a lot of language in there that I played that I even was surprised at. So support the channel, support Jazz Mental with that purchase, and you have my utmost gratitude for that. Let me switch to today's download, which is this one, which is the Red Garland solo. Now, the interesting thing about this is that he plays the tune in a different key. So you can tell right away that instead of in the key of B flat, he's playing it in the key of E flat. And there's a lot of like original bebop language in here. For example, the very first pickup into the first chord of the tune, which is F minor 7. So he's going to, instead of starting on 4 major 7, he's starting on 2 minor 7. So there you go. There's complete evidence that you can swap out 4 major 7 with 2 minor 7. But before he does that, he sticks on the root of the chord for the first 2 bars. So he's got this one. It's kind of like a lick, like a jazz lick. And then he gets into pretty traditional bebop playing here. Interesting, where most piano players would play a B flat, he plays the flat 9 on the B flat 7 chord. So interesting, right? It's almost like it doesn't, it's wrong, but it actually sounds good. So there's, again, it's just pretty standard bebop language. I'm not going to go through this in detail because I think it's somewhat overwhelming to start to analyze the entire thing. But just try to remember that when you learn somebody else's solo, there is language in there that has to make sense. And even though the B flat 7 might sound wrong, it's kind of like a pattern. It's like a mold or a shape. It's like a shape. And even though the notes don't sound particularly right, in the context of the solo, they work. Right? So a lot of language in there. I'm glad to give you this. I've had this transcription for quite a while, and I've learned it in the past. I haven't practiced it in a long time, but I wanted to share it with you because I do think that there's language in there that will be fun for you to learn. So enjoy that. And here is the transcription that I talked about, the My Funny Valentine transcription. In the end, it's a complete, how many pages is it? Eight pages of transcription. And you can see there's a lot of runs and a lot of language in here. And to remind those of you kind of how it started, it starts like this. And the voicings are actually the interesting part off the top. Got to get it right. Right? So it's all there. And if you want to support the channel, then go grab the transcription and learn it. It's quite detailed, and I really thank our transcriber in Poland, PJ, for doing the work, because it was definitely a lot of work, especially this part. Holy smokes. Anyway, fun. It's just scales, really. Something like that. But anyway, there you go. Enjoy. Thank you, Rich. Glad you're in. Thanks for supporting the channel once again. Appreciate it. Jerry, I suggested the transcription because of the language you used. I heard it straight away and knew it would be worth analyzing. It is definitely worth analyzing. Maybe we will do that in another live stream someday, is analyze that tune. Anyway, I think that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate your attention and questions surrounding 4 major 7th chords and how versatile they are. And I hope you got a lot of good ideas from today's live stream. I am off to the hospital to come and see you, Nancy, if you're still online. And I look forward to seeing you because I missed you last night. So we will reconvene next week, same time, same place. Jazzmental YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/jazzmental, MENTL, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time next Saturday. I will, for those of you that are on the mailing list, I will inform you either Thursday or Friday, the day before, to let you know what the subject will be. And thanks so much for showing up. I really appreciate it. It's been fun hanging out with you. My name is Paul Tobey, and I wish you a great day, especially for those of you that got up at 5 a.m. like Rich to watch this thing. So have a great day and a great weekend, and I will see you all next week. Take care.